Okay, so welcome to my channel where we're gonna talk a little bit about C. So yeah, don't mind all this code, and I just want to share a little bit about some advanced topics, probably advanced topics in C, and hopefully you can take something from these. So today I want to talk about, actually today I wanted to talk about function pointers and why exactly do we need them, or what are the potential applications. Okay, so I'm basically an engineer from energy storage, and I work with different type of inverters, and I develop algorithms, I develop control philosophy on how to control them, and most of my work happens on Modbus, sometimes CAN bus as well. So typically Modbus RTU or Modbus TCP, and sometimes CAN bus. Yeah, yeah, as you know, as you may be aware of CAN bus as well. So that is widely used in automotive industry. Uh, yeah. So basically, we write. I write programs for handling the power. Uh, uh, so basically, integrating with grid, and uh, how do we import, how do we export power, and yeah. So I got into this uh, in developing in C. So one of the major problems with C is not having the feature of classes, which is there in C++. So today I want to show you how we can do. Uh, basically, you can, if you want to avoid all this nonsense, you can go to C++. But yeah, here's a small way how you could do it, and yeah. So let's discuss. So if you see here, so this is the structure, anonymous structure definition here called PCS CTX, which is what I mean by PCS context. What is PCS in this context is power conversion systems or power converter solutions, whatever you may name it. So what I want to do exactly with this is I create a structure, right? And whenever I initialize a structure variable, I what we usually do, if I just write here, uh, let me just see. I think I need to include a few things. So include pcs.h, sorry, and so here now we have this. Now I can make structures. So what I could basically do is define here a structure that is, let's say, PCS CTX, anything that you want to name. Let's name a PCS called Danfoss. Uh, no, yeah. So Danfoss is one of the makes of PCSs that you may have. So how you would initialize it like this, right? So one of the disadvantages is, like, now that you made the structure, uh, irrespective of what is there inside here, it doesn't really like initialize anything from the PCS perspective. Like, the PCS is not getting configured, or you basically cannot call any functions, right? If you do this, so that's why here we come with the idea of function pointers or functions. How we can realize a sort of a class is like this. So the first thing that I've done is define some function pointers here. So how does function pointers work is, this is the return type, void something, and this is the pointer's name, the function pointer's name. It doesn't mean this is the function's name that you would allocate later, which I'll show you. It is just a function pointer's name, and this function pointer accepts how many types of arguments. So here it is two, one is int and one is modbus t star. So if you guys are into modbus communication, you can just read through this, and this is just a modbus context that you should parse as an argument. And there are different names I have given. So one is like mode set, which is basically governing the mode control of a power conversion system. This is the reactive power mode setting. This is the active power mode. So in if you are in power, you would know in reactive power mode there is power factor control, there is reactive power control, there is reactive power ratio control, and there may be other things. Similarly, in active power mode, there is power command like active power command, and there could be DC voltage command or DC current command, right? Sometimes in active power also there is DC power regulation and AC power regulation. So it depends on what exactly the PCS is giving you. The word is just a name, right? So similarly, there are different names like active power command and reactive power command. Exactly what is the command that you want to execute, and some other function pointers here, right? Now let's come to the topic of how do we initialize. So now that we have defined a structure, what I can do in C is I can define a function which basically returns a structure as well. So here is the function which returns a structure of this type, that is PCS context, right? Here you go, right? So now what is PCS? What is this init function? So in init function, you can define, I have already written the piece of code, but I just want to write it here again. So here you can define PCS, sorry, context, and oh my god, PCS context, and the function's name is init. You may get some error because we have already defined it. And these are some initializing arguments that you would, as a programmer or as an engineer, would want to pass on. Like it's basically like forming an object in C++, where this is the initializing values that you would like to give, right? If we go here, we can just upload, and I'm just following. So I am using these arguments because these are the ones that I need for initializing something, and it depends on you what your function, what you would want to initialize, and what are the arguments that you would like to give, right? So now we have this, correct? So this is the function that I'm trying to define. So first thing I will, now this, the objective of this function is to return a structure, right? And to return a structure, I must form a structure first, right? Internally. So I'm going to define a structure like PCS, CTX, something. Let's say you can write, let's say temp, maybe because it's a temporary thing. And now you have created a structure. Now you can allocate things. So for example, at PCS mode, right? So now, uh, for example, I have this PCS mode as an argument, correct? How I will use this, I will show you. Okay, and so first of all, let's first define what these structure pointers, not structure pointer, function pointers return to or point to actually, right? So we must define that. Otherwise, it's nothing basically, right? So now I would like to make this guy point to something like mode set, oh, mode set, and you do not need to pass any arguments because right now you are working with the pointer right now, and you just need to point it to some function. Let's say function one, right? And that's it. So function one is not defined, that's why it's showing red. I can just define it here. Void function one. And remember, so now that uh, uh, just to keep it simple, let me just do it like this and print here, sorry, printf, do something, right? New line. So now this is pointing to this function, right? And uh, the reason it is showing red because there is no function prototype here, right? Why? Because the compiler is not able to understand what is function one, right? So you must define a prototype. I'm going to define a prototype void function one, and void here as well. That's it. Maybe it wasn't working well because I didn't give arguments here. Let me check. Yeah, it is still red. It cannot still probably identify undeclared. Yeah, that's why. So we still need to do this. Right, func one and right. So it is doing something, right? And it may throw some errors because yeah, because I have not given any arguments here, right? So what I wanted to initially highlight while defining this function, or whatever the function that you want to allocate to this structure pointer here, the arguments must match the type of arguments, right? So for example, I just can define here like this: int comma int x comma mod bus t star y, right? And I just need to include modbus.h here as well. Okay, so now we have this, and oh bloody hell, what the fuck is wrong? Okay, stdio.h as well. stdio.h, right? So everything is okay now. Uh, Previous declaration is what? Conflicting types. PCS dot. Okay, function one. Okay, here I need to, once I declared this here, I need to also modify the prototype. So yeah, should be okay now. Yeah, now we are okay. So remember, as the basic point is now that you have defined, now you have allocated this mode set, that is the function pointer, to the address of this function, right? And remember, you must it must match the number of arguments that you have here to the number of arguments that you have here while defining the function, and you must give a function prototype as well so that the compiler can understand within the function, right? So now you can do this for any number of functions that may have, like you can write temp dot whatever and rct mode, and you can just, let's say, point it to some other function, but for simplicity I'm going to do this, right? And so it can be function 2, you just need to define it here, what is function 2, right? So let's discuss further. So this is just allocating the function pointer to this function. It's not still calling the function. So how do we do that? So to do that, once you're done with all the allocation of your function pointers, what you can do is just do this temp dot uh, mode set. Now you pass the arguments. What are your arguments? So in mode set, I am going to, let's say, use PCS mode as one of the arguments, and of course the context for communication. So in this case, it is CTX, the variable here. And since it is not returning anything, I'm not initializing anything. Usually you would see something like this, right? Int y or something, but since it's a void return type, I'm not doing anything. What this is going to do is call the function as well, right? So for example, mode set, and when this is called, it is going to call function 1 and it is going to do something. So now, in for example, in your main, uh, I don't want to show my main, it is filled with a lot of logic controls. So here in main, what you could do is do this. Now you can initialize your uh, structure variable, right? Which is a type of type PCS context. So let's say the name of the inverter is electronics, right? So something like that, right? Is equals to, now you must define PCS CTX is equals to PCS CTX is equals, selectronics is equals to init, and you're gonna pass your arguments, let's say 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma whatever something. It is looking for this, so I haven't initialized it, but etc etc we can just write down later if you initialize. So once I call this thing, it's gonna call this function init, right? And init is defined here actually right now, and it's gonna call this guy. But what's the problem? If you guys have noticed, I have not returned anything. That's the problem. So I must return, after initializing everything, I must return temp. So once I do that, right, it's gonna return. Electronics will have the attributes sort of thing that you would think in C++ or Python, uh, by calling the function init, and basically the attributes are this, correct? So these are some way, I have some static variables, I mean not static, like some variables have defined, and I have some other function pointers. So these are the sort of functions I can use later, right? So now I have done this, I have the liberty to do this. Selectronics dot, I can call any of the functions that are defined here. You see, it's F, correct? Reactive power command, active power command, or whatever, reset, mode set, start command, anything. So this essentially gives object oriented sort of programming, right? And you can use this way of, you know, doing this using function pointers. It's one of the ways. And yeah, I hope this was informative. Let me know in comments if I fucked up somewhere.